So can you just tell me a little bit about your new book that came out last year?
Yes, I can. The book is called My Own Directions, A Black Man's Journey in the American Theater. And it really traces my career from very, very early days, meaning my birth in Los Angeles, California, through going to Teaneck, New Jersey, and discovering Broadway theater, and then getting involved in drama clubs in junior high school, which led me to studying acting at college. And then moving into directing, which eventually led me to jobs on Broadway and off Broadway and all over the country. And finally to Pasadena Playhouse, where I was artistic director for 20 years. And it's very much about the joys and triumphs of a great career, but also the obstacles and challenges that I faced all along the way as a person of color trying to make a career in the arts in this country.
Yeah. And so starting from that beginning, because I know you said you cultivated a love of theater, watching shows in New York and stuff like that. But you had also said, if I read correctly, as you were a boy, you watched a show at the Pasadena Playhouse. And I was wondering kind of when your interest in pursuing a career in theater came about, and also how it felt to make a return to the place where it kind of all started.
Yeah. Yes, ironically, the theater where I first saw a professional production of a play called A Member of the Wedding was at Pasadena Playhouse. And it would probably be a better story if I could tell you, and that was the day that I decided to dedicate myself to the theater. That's not quite true.
Sure.
It was the day that I fell in love with going to the theater. But I really wanted to be a lawyer for most of my youth, which is kind of theatrical also.
Yes.
But it wasn't until I went to the East Coast and discovered Broadway theater and fell in love with big Broadway musicals, but also just working on plays and musicals in the drama club, that I really got fixated on the possibility of having a career as an actor.
Yeah.
And my parents were actually fine about that as long as I went to college and got a degree. And that's what led me to Carnegie Mellon University.
Sure.
First as an actor and eventually as a director.
Yeah, because I was going to say you've done acting, directing, artistic directing, writing, all of that. So can you talk to me a little bit about what each artistic job has taught you about the industry and how it kind of informed not only your book, but how you look at diversity, not only in theater, but in film, in TV, all of that?
Yeah. Well, I think being an actor actually taught me how to be a director, the kind of language to use, and to really know the kind of things that help actors give the best performances. And I guess my freelance career as a director, and realizing the kind of challenges I had and that other people of my generation had in getting work outside of what I call the black box, was very instructive.
Yeah.
And stayed with me when I became an employer, when I became an artistic director. And because of my experiences and my knowledge of the experiences of other people, it just was very, very important to me to focus on diversity on stage and off, and to broaden the scope of work for actors of color, and to broaden the scope of audiences.
Sure.
In many theaters where I'd worked, I frequently was the only Black person in the audience. And I thought that was fundamentally wrong, especially in a community like Pasadena and Los Angeles, which was so richly diverse. It was important to me that the theater should reflect the community and in fact reflect what America is.
Sure. And do you think, like, going off of that, kind of a testament to maybe the shows aren't speaking to a diverse population, the fact that a diverse population is not showing up to see the shows? Do you think that kind of the audience kind of informs the show and vice versa?
Yes, of course. Everybody wants to see stories that relate to their own life. Whether you're a woman, whether you're a young person, whether you're a person of color. People want to see plays about people who are like themselves.
Yeah.
Once they're hooked on the idea of going to the theater by those kind of plays, you realize that every play is about the human race. So then you become more willing to see plays about other ethnicities,
Sure.
other age groups, all of that. But initially, I think it's important to woo people into the theater, into an art form, by giving them something that they can really relate to, that
Mm.
they really have a context for. So
Sure.
that's why I think diversity is so important.
That makes sense. And I think I read you talked about before how, you know, in your many roles, you've also mentored, you know, young actors of color and diverse actors. And so can you talk to me about how this book was kind of born out of that mentorship and what they've told you about their experiences and how it kind of shows the evolution of theater or the lack thereof?
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly realized that around about 2020, when I first started thinking about writing the book, and there were many conversations and meetings, many of them by Zoom, about racism in the theater. I realized that some of those conversations in 2020 were things that I had faced and talked about decades before, over the last 30 years before that. So it seemed important to me to address them directly. Number one, as a way of letting people know that they shouldn't feel alone, that this was not new and it wasn't singular to their experiences. But also, I guess, to be kind of an example of the fact that those challenges and obstacles can be overcome
Mm.
with, number one, honesty about it and facing it honestly, and working to tear down those walls, which I believe that we have. And, you know, things have changed a lot over the last 5 years. There's still ways to go, and we need more change and more people in positions of power. But we certainly have seen things evolve in a way that is very, very healthy.
Sure. And it's all about creating that sustained change. You don't want to just change
Yeah.
for the moment and then go back to what things
Yeah.
were. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people have said to me that, you know, there was a movement started in 2020
Mm.
in the theater, in the entertainment business. And I say, I hope that is true. I hope that it is a movement and not a moment,
Sure.
that this is not a knee-jerk reaction to all of those protests of many kinds that have happened, that the positive motion forward that we have seen will be permanent motion forward and not motion of the moment, but
Mm.
in fact movement.
Sure. Yeah. There's a huge distinction between the two.
Yes, there is. There is.
And so what would you say, what do you hope people get out of the book you wrote?
Well, first of all, I hope it's interesting and entertaining. And there are some great stories about people I've worked with and opportunities I've had in the theater. But I do hope it'll be inspiring. And not that anybody should be inspired to try to be like me or do what I did, but I hope it inspires people to turn on the title a little bit, to follow their own directions,
Mm.
to find your own paths, to believe in yourselves, to not let your journey be defined by others, but define your own journey. And don't be beaten down when people say you can do this and you can't do that. Know that if you have passion, if you have tenacity, if you're willing to work hard, anything is possible. You know, great things are always possible if you really go at it with confidence.
Sure. And this may be kind of similar to what your answer just was, but what would you say to people who are starting theater nonprofits? Like we have a couple in Central Florida here. There's one called Central Florida Entertainment Advocacy that they're doing all of this kind of work. And how would you say, what would you say to them to kind of keep the momentum going?
Well, number one, I would say I think you're doing the right thing. I started my career as a director in a little 75-seat theater in New York City.
Yeah.
So great things can happen out of a situation like that. You know, greatness can grow from a seed. So keep at it. You're doing the right thing. You have to be tenacious. You have to work hard. I often say that the result on the stage is magical, but it takes a lot of hard work to get to the magical. It's not magic.
Yeah.
Be resourceful. You know, it's not always about the money. Sometimes it's about imagination and passion for the work and creativity. But most of all, believe that those kind of situations are really, really worthwhile and can have great results, but you do have to be patient.
Mm.
None of it is going to happen overnight. Whenever you hear about an overnight success, that's usually somebody who's been at it for years or decades.
Yeah, sure. You
So
don't see the behind the scenes. Yeah,
exactly. Patience
sure.
is really, really important in a career in the arts.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can attest to that as someone who did high school, college theater. I see all my friends struggling. It's a constant, you work at it. So work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And there's always more to aspire to. There's always more to gain, always more to learn.
Sure.
And you know, if you try to learn it all quickly, you're not going to learn it all very well.
Mm, very true. Hard lesson to learn. Amazing. And then you're in DC right now with the Ford Theater, is that correct? Or
um, I'm actually still live in Pasadena, but
oh,
yeah,
okay.
I
Okay,
do work. I'm a senior artistic advisor at Ford's Theater in DC.
gotcha. So,
Continuing the same kind of work that I did at Pasadena Playhouse with
okay.
building new audiences and diversity in the programming and in the artists involved. So I go back and forth now and do a lot of it this way by Zoom and telephone and all of
Amazing. Okay, so then besides your book, where can people kind of find out more about you or find your work if they're living here?
that. Well, I did a movie for BET this year called Christmas Party Crashers.
Mhm.
And I worked in a series called The Upshaws on Netflix, which is still in the rotation. And I'm doing a new musical in Chicago called Personality. I
Mhm.
just worked on a new play called Miss Maud in Houston. And both of those projects are scheduled to go around the country and hopefully land in big cities all over the country.
Amazing.
And yeah, people can follow me on Instagram and learn about the work. And most of all, go to Amazon.com and get the book.
Yes, amazing. You are a very busy man.
I
Putting us all to shame. Um, well, those were all the questions I had. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add or.
I think we've covered it. I think we've covered pretty much everything, unless you feel there's something we left out.
Not at the moment, but that's always gonna come in your mind at the last minute. Yeah.
Well, let me know.
Thank
Or
you.
Jonathan know, and I'll try to get you another answer.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I may ask him, I don't know if you have like a professional photo that you like to use for articles like this. But would he
He
be
has
the,
all of that.
okay,
He can send you a whole sort of file that has a whole bunch of photos in it.
perfect. Okay. Well,
All
thank
right.
you so much. It was lovely talking to you.
Nice to talk to you. Have a
Okay.
great evening.
You as well. Bye.